friends, and welcome to the CUInsight Network. I'm Robbie Young, Vice President of Strategic Growth at CUInsight.com, and on this show, I have conversations with thought leaders who support the credit union community. We'll identify issues affecting credit unions and discuss best practices so that we can both learn and improve. My guest on today's show is Laura Loy, Chief Experience Officer at On the Mark Strategies. Laura, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Robbie. I'm excited to be here.
Of course. So let's jump right in here. Most of us didn't really grow up thinking we would work in credit unions. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Credit unions definitely were not on my radar. And I loved to cook and I was very social. So I wanted to own a restaurant. And every Friday night growing up, my parents would take our family to the local family-owned Mexican restaurant. And the manager took me around and introduced me to everybody, kind of like showed me how the restaurant ran. In fact, when I was young, he even took me around and I sold Girl Scout cookies at each table, which my parents didn't like because that meant that when it came time to deliver, they had to drive me all over town to deliver Girl Scout cookies. But I mean, I just loved it so much. I wanted to go to Cornell for their hospitality management program so I could open my own restaurant.
This will be the second podcast where someone has emphasized their experience in a Mexican restaurant as something that influenced how they do their work today.
Well, there you go. Food is always good.
Right. We ended with the tagline, let them serve chips. So what was the journey like to your current role as Chief Experience Officer at On the Mark Strategies?
Yeah, I worked in restaurants actually in high school and college, and I realized it's just way too much work. So that I ruled out pretty quickly. But I've always been interested in business, in particular international business. I studied French and Spanish in high school and college. I got my bachelor's in business economics and then later my master's in international business. So I spent 20 years working in marketing, training, nonprofit management in various industries and working abroad as well. So I was working as the executive director of an education foundation. And, you know, when you're running a nonprofit, you're always on, right? So, you know, committee meetings with volunteers at night. In the grocery store, people would stop me to ask me what's going on with the foundation. And for the sake of my family, I just really wanted to get back to kind of a regular work schedule. And I was having coffee with a friend of mine who at the time was the branch manager of Zia Credit Union, which is where I worked here in northern New Mexico. And she said, hey, we're hiring for somebody to run our marketing department. And I was like, oh, that sounds pretty good. So I ended up getting the job there. And yeah, I spent 4 years. I left as the VP of Marketing and Business Development at Zia. And I really got that credit union bug under my skin. So I met Mark Arnold a couple of times, the CEO of On the Mark Strategies. And I actually hired On the Mark to do a rebranding project for Zia Credit Union. It was really good. I was so impressed. And I just thought if the opportunity ever comes up to work for this team, I would love to do that. And lo and behold, it did come up about a year ago. So now I say I used to work with one awesome credit union because Zia is awesome, but now I get to work with dozens of awesome credit unions. So it's been a good journey.
Well, having known Mark and the whole team over there at On the Mark Strategies for quite some time, I can honestly really understand how you felt like, ooh, maybe there's a spot on that team for me eventually. They're so nice over there. Can you tell me a little bit more about On the Mark Strategies and where and how they add value to the credit union?
Yeah, absolutely. So we like to say we are a group of superheroes helping local financial institutions fight against the top 10 big banks, who, by the way, hold 77% of the assets in the banking industry. So the majority of us on the team have worked for credit unions. We care about credit unions. We want to give them every leg up we can in the market and just the potential to succeed because it's getting harder and harder for credit unions, I think, with technology and just how rapidly things are changing. So we focus on 4 main areas at On the Mark: strategy, branding, people, and marketing. And so this includes traditional and digital marketing with our creative team. We do websites, branding, including naming and logos. We offer training for leaders, for staff, board members, and we also have a strategic component where we do strategic planning, but also strategic workshops like identifying vision and values and board assessments and that kind of thing.
So for credit unions, the member experience can be a key competitive advantage. Can you share how your team at On the Mark supports credit unions with fine-tuning and really executing their strategies related to member journey?
Yes. And I love how you phrase that. It can be a key competitive advantage. Absolutely. But honestly, some credit unions have a hard time with member experience and maybe not wanting to invest in it because there's not a direct return on investment. But it's so important to invest in member experience. Our CEO, Mark, he's a funny guy. He sometimes says, "What's the ROI on your mother?" Well, exactly. We can't calculate that, but we just know how valuable mothers are. So we follow the 3 C's of a strong brand, which are clarity, consistency, and constancy. So we start with our credit unions and we work with them to map out every interaction their credit union has with the member. And not even just with the member, because we say member experience is everybody's responsibility. And we say employees are either member facing or member impacting because everybody has an impact on member experience. So through the journey mapping process, we make sure that the credit union and all their employees are clear on their brand, and we give it an acronym. So it's something that's easy to remember. It resonates with an employee because their buy-in is so critical. They're the ones that are going to be living the brand. And then we follow up with interactive discussions or training, if you want to call it that, with staff on various aspects of sales and service and how they relate directly to their brand. And we bring that acronym in every time so that it really resonates with them. And that's what ensures that members have that consistent experience with every interaction. And that is just so important. And then the trainings, they typically take place once a month. And that's where we have that constancy. It's important to be constant with the employees because they're the ones living the brand. And so we don't want it to kind of fall off their radar and they forget. We want it to be constant once a month so that after a while, they don't even think about delivering the member experience. It just becomes second nature to them. And we've seen that the credit unions that follow through with the journey mapping and they stick with the member experience on a regular basis, they see higher NPS scores, they get better online reviews, they have more positive mystery shop results, and honestly, happier employees because the credit union has invested in them and really given them the resources to succeed, the resources to really deliver that wow member experience.
That's such great information. I'm really curious about the focus your team has on using what you call the 4 success markers when working with credit unions. Can you share a little bit about what those are and how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. So those of us at the On the Mark team, we've been working, most of us, with credit unions for a number of years. And what we've seen and experienced that are the 4 success markers that credit unions need to thrive are strategy, branding, people, and marketing. And they need to have all 4. So, Robbie, I want to just encourage the listeners to ask themselves these questions. Number 1, where will you focus? Because that's the strategy. Number 2, why do you exist and who will you target and what makes you different? Because that's branding. Number 3, how will you develop and align your team? That's the people part. And the 4th one is how will you promote your products and services? That's the marketing. And I would say to any credit union or anybody out there listening, if you struggle with not being able to answer any one of the questions, and I mean, including your staff, including your board, including yourself, or if you don't have alignment on those answers, you're going to struggle as an organization. And if I give an example, my own experience as a credit union, when we hired On the Mark strategies, we could not answer the question, what makes you different? Not really. Credit unions, we say, people and service and people, but what really truly makes you different? And so we hired On the Mark to do our branding. We did get a great new logo out of it, but we also got this new philosophy and this new understanding of what truly made us different. So, I mean, credit unions can hire companies that do just branding or creative or planning. But the idea of these four success markers is that when they work all together and we're able to do all four things under the On the Mark strategies umbrella, it gives credit unions a holistic approach to their growth and their success.
And for any listener that couldn't answer all of those questions, we will be sure to link all of Laura and On the Mark team's information in the notes so that you can reach out to her directly and just say, hey, I couldn't answer those questions, and she can certainly help you. Absolutely. I know that you've worked in marketing roles in multiple industries, like you mentioned before. What do you find most rewarding about working alongside credit unions?
The people in the service, right? That's what we always say. But truly, for me, it's that credit unions and their employees are committed to something bigger than themselves in the bottom line. And that just really resonates with me. And I've seen this firsthand at my own credit union where I worked and where I'm still a member. And the credit unions that I work with all around the country, they care about their members, they care about the communities, and they care about each other. And I just think also credit union folks are just really nice people. So I enjoy the work even more because of who I have the opportunity to work with. And in fact, just the other day, a friend of mine was saying to me that she just feels so much uncertainty right now, just in the country and life. And she said, I feel like my banking is somewhere that I could feel more stability. And she asked me about our local credit unions. And that just made me so proud of our industry that it's not just a place to put your money. It's something that you can really trust and that gives you something. Maybe you're looking for that stability or that certainty in maybe some uncertain times.
Talk about a solid marketing campaign right there. She kind of gave it to us. As we look to the future, what is On the Mark Strategy's focus on the road ahead?
It's a great question. I mean, the financial industry, it's evolving so quickly. And if I'm being totally honest, credit unions are not always the fastest to respond to market changes. And that's okay, right? They're doing important work. But at On the Mark Strategies, we're really trying hard to be one step ahead so that we can help our clients do the same. You know, things like AI, everybody's talking about it. Our credit unions doing it. Some of them may be doing a little bit, but we want to keep up and be one step ahead so that we can help our clients do the same. We're also developing some new products and services to meet credit unions where they are and really help them solve their pain points while still staying true to our core competencies. So we've looked at, here's what we do really well, and how can we evolve those products and services to help credit unions meet what might be some new pain points that have come up as the industry is evolving.
Such important work there. To wrap up the show, I'd like to have some fun with our next couple of questions. The questions will be rapid fire, but your answers certainly don't have to be. Are you ready?
I am ready.
So, who is someone in your life that you saw as a great leader, and what do you think made them great or makes them great?
This is a hard question to answer just one person because I've been lucky to have some great mentors throughout my career. But to answer this question, I'm going to have to say our CEO, Mark Arnold. He is just so knowledgeable. He's really smart, but he keeps things relatable and real. And I just think that anyone who's met him at a conference or worked with him, you know, you probably know this as well, Robbie, he's just so approachable. I think what I admire the most about him, though, is the way he runs the company. You know, I've seen that now as a member of the On the Mark Strategies team. But the company treats its employees like owners. And having that owner's mindset truly has a positive impact on the quality of what we deliver to our clients because we are personally invested in it. And it has a positive impact on how we run the company. And I've not experienced that in a job before. So I'd have to shout out to Mark. I think he's built an incredible company. And I feel really lucky to work for that company.
I would definitely agree with that. And shout out to Mark. We think you do great work too. So if you're going to splurge on something and you really want to treat yourself, what is one thing that you might invest in a bit?
That is an easy one to answer, and that is travel. It's always travel. I am not the person who's got to have a new car or the latest toys, but I love experiences. And I kind of have my eye on an Amazon river cruise. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to make that happen this year, but I would love to do that at some point.
Okay, so that leads me to my next question is if you're traveling for work, what city are you most excited to visit, whether it's a client visit or going to a conference?
Any city. I love exploring new places, and I get to do that in this job. So that's great. I guess I'd have to say one of our clients, Atlantic City Federal Credit Union, shout out to Brian and team. They're based in Lander, Wyoming, and it's not the easiest place to get to. It is a bit out there, but I always enjoy working with them, not just because they're a great credit union and a great group of people, but because the natural beauty there is so stunning. I went up, and I think it was to facilitate their strategic planning. And as I was driving up there, I saw a grizzly mama and her two cubs just playing on the side of the road. And they're very proud. And they showed me the state park that's near where they are. And it's just stunning. So I'd have to say, I'm looking forward to going back and seeing the Atlantic City folks so I can check out more of their beautiful part of the country.
Okay, but don't get too close to those bears.
Oh, no. I stayed in the car. Trust me.
Perfect. What is the one book that you think everyone should read?
Hands down, The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I just finished it. I feel like I am a disciple because I'm telling everybody I know to read it, including my family. I love her podcasts. And actually, a friend of mine said, I love her podcast too, but how could she write a whole book about the topic? And I'm like, just read it. Trust me. It's so authentic. It's so insightful. And what I love is it applies just as much to our personal lives and relationships as it does to work. There's so much food for thought in the book. And I probably refer to it on a daily basis now. So check out The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. Great book.
Well, I guess that really solidifies my need to read that too, because I just put that on my list recently, so I'll have to bump it to the top. What has been the best hack for creating balance and integration between your work life and your life?
Yeah, I'd have to say I put it out into the universe, or as my 19-year-old says, I manifest it. And I guess that's kind of akin to like blocking out the time on your calendar, but I mentally block it out so that I am making sure that I have that life balance. That plus, I think I just have an aptitude for staying incredibly focused when I'm working. So I can work really hard and then I could disconnect when it comes time to enjoy life. So just a quick little story, when I interviewed with the CEO at Zia Credit Union, where I previously worked, he looked at my resume and he said, I see you're only working 4 days a week at your current job. This job is 5 days a week. How do you feel about that? And I flat out told him, I only want to work 4 days a week, but I truly feel that I can get 5 days worth of work done in 4 days each week. And he's like, okay. And he told me that I proved it to him time and time again. So just really hyper-focused when I'm working. But then I mentally carve out that time and I say, I'm going to put my work aside and I'm going to make sure I have time for that play.
I like that, being very strategic and intentional with your time. So we will be sure to link to everything we talked about today in the show notes. My last question for you is, do you have any final thoughts or anything you would like to share with our listeners?
Yeah, just a little food for thought. I've got one more question that I encourage the listeners to ask someone today. And that question is, did you know? And this is a trick that we use in our member experience program because it incites curiosity. And as part of that program, it makes sure employees are living the brand consistently. It's a great way to communicate information and spark conversations. So I'm going to ask you, Robbie, did you know that research shows the did you know question gets a 20% response rate on average? So I always say to credit union staffs when I work with them, if you don't ask it at all, you're going to get a 0% response rate, right? So you might as well be asking it every day. And I say at every interaction. And when you're engaging with members and prospective members and coworkers, and you're going to get a 20% response rate on average. So that's a lot better than 0%, right? So our credit unions have taken this to heart. Some of them have created Slack channels called Did You Know, where they're sharing information with each other on the team. And I just think it's a great tool that is just so easy to implement right away. So I encourage the listeners, just ask somebody today the question, did you know, with something that they want to share or some conversation that they want to start.
Well, that might certainly cause my team to laugh a little because I am a chronic did you know person. But
Yes.
Thank you again, Laura, for being on the show. Stay well. And thanks to all of our listeners today for tuning into the CUInsight Network. We will be back again next time.